The arts are something very, very dear to my heart. And today we have the opportunity to chat with an individual, a friend of mine, colleague, who is very involved in the arts, particularly the performing arts in with a performing arts center in California. It's going to be a great conversation. I want you to be a part of it. So put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it's time for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. I'm Steve Glavin, and this is the show where we come together around our virtual coffee table each week and join the conversation to chat about interesting topics with amazing guests. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. All right, listen, I'm going to check real quick here online. Carissa, I know you are online right now. Is my audio working okay? Microphone, because I was having a little bit of issue getting the correct microphone up. So I just want to make sure I'm audible. Very good. All right. I still don't have the correct microphone up, so hopefully this is going to be okay. We always just play it by ear here at Coffee Breaks with Steve because, well, you never know what's going to happen when you go live. Anyway, hey, thanks for being here. It's good to have you here today. Hello, Jerry. Good morning and happy Saturday to you as well. And once again, if you are joining us, please do take the time to say hello in the chat so that we know that you're here. And when we do get to our conversation with our guest today, participate in the conversation, join the conversation, because that's what this is all about. We do join together around the virtual coffee table. Some of you may be joining us today. Hi, Carla. On YouTube rather than Facebook, and that's fine too. Just want to let you know that there's going to be chat going on that's primarily visible on the Facebook side. Since we're broadcasting live on both sites, there's not a good handshake between Facebook and YouTube when it comes to the chat. So if you do have access to Facebook, I strongly encourage you to join in on that platform. It just will make it a little bit easier for you to be part of the conversation today. Just checking a couple of things here real quick. I want to get to our conversation. I can't talk. Hang on. You know what that means. Better. I want to get to our conversation with our guest, but before we do that, I do want to share a couple of sweet and savory things going on with you this week. First, I want to look back. I want to say once again a thank you to Carissa, who hosted the show last week, had a great conversation with her Kazakh language instructor, Asel, talking a lot about how language and how the languages that we speak help us to break down borders, and just also learning some things culturally about Kazakhstan. And it was a great conversation. Carissa did and always does a great job. So thank you, Carissa. I mentioned last week, and we mentioned when I briefly came on the air, that I was actually in Las Vegas during that time. I went to Las Vegas with Shalane, and that was for her to pursue some things directly related to her acting career that she is actively pursuing. But we went for several days, and only at part of that time was she doing the things related to acting. The rest of the time, she had never been to Las Vegas before. I had been there, but it had been a number of years. And we had the opportunity to do several things that were just really a lot of fun. This is a picture of us one of the night times when we were out on the Strip in Las Vegas. The hotel we were staying at was a few blocks off the Strip, thank goodness. The Strip can be a bit crazy. If you have ever been to Las Vegas before, you know that being on the Strip, particularly at night, is a lot like being in Times Square in New York at night. It's a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of lights, there's a lot of sound, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of craziness. But being there together, we had a lot of fun exploring. We were out in the daytime. Carissa mentioned here we didn't melt. it was averaging probably 102, 103 degrees by midday or afternoon in Las Vegas while we were there. I think one day the hottest it got was up to 108, 109 degrees. Yes, it is a dry heat, but it's still it's still a lot of heat. But we got to do several things that were just a lot of fun while we were there. There is, if you've never looked this up before, when we get done with the show, not right now because I want you here, but look up something called the Sphere Las Vegas. You may have seen this. It just opened a year or so ago, and it's this venue in Vegas off of the Strip that is this giant geodesic dome, huge geodesic dome that on the outside has millions of LED lights that are constantly showing almost like a running graphic and billboard. They advertise things on it. They just show some really cool graphics on it. You can actually see some both video, recorded video, and I think there's a live stream. It's a camera some point away from it that's just aimed at one side of the sphere. On the inside, there is first this huge lobby area that covers several floors where they have, of course, concessions and other things, but they have a lot of displays of technology and high tech, and even have some artificial intelligence robots that interact with the crowd. And so it kind of keeps people busy before you go in to see the show. And then you go into the auditorium and it's huge. It seats, I don't remember the exact number, but I think somewhere around maybe 5,000 people. And it's this huge auditorium that you're facing what initially looks like an IMAX screen. And they have this show that's been prepared. They can also use this space for live concerts and other things. But right now they have a show that's going that's called Postcard to Earth, or from Earth. And I'm not going to go into details about the plot line or the focus, but as it starts to talk about Earth and things on the Earth, it goes from this IMAX screen to becoming this huge immersive covering all around you, basically the projection and the sound. And during certain times, I mean, the chairs even vibrate, and presumably Shalane and I didn't notice this, but there are times if the wind's blowing that you feel the wind in your face, or if there's certain smells or aromas they have. So they kind of create this four-dimensional experience. It was amazing. It was an amazing show. I recommend going and experiencing the Sphere if you're in Las Vegas. And then we had a chance a night or two later to go see the Blue Man Group, which neither of us had ever seen. I'd heard a lot about them. It was an extraordinarily entertaining and interactive show. We got to take, thanks to our dear friend Jenny Connolly and her sister, who works at Allegiant Stadium, which is the stadium that the Las Vegas Raiders uses, their home stadium. It's I think the newest stadium in the NFL. We got to take a VIP tour of Allegiant Stadium. We just walking the Strip, going into the different venues and seeing how overwhelming it can be there. It was a lot of fun. Now, I will be the first to say Las Vegas is not my jam. I'm not like a person who would want to go back to Las Vegas on all my vacations, but it was a lot of fun to be there, to check some things out, to be there with Shalane and get to experience that with her. We had a great time. There were other things that we did. I'm not going to try to cover every single day and every single thing that we did. And she did have the opportunity to go get the headshots done with a photographer that she'd been working with and reaching out to, who was based in Las Vegas, part of what she wanted to do while she was there. But we just had a great time. And thank you to Shalane for allowing me to accompany her and have this amazing time. It was literally coming off of our 2-week trip to London, to England. So by the end of the 3 weeks, when I got home last weekend, I was ready to be home for sure. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. And then I also wanted to mention this is a special day on the calendar. This is National Waffle Day. Are you a waffle fan? Do you like waffles? This actually commemorates National Waffle Day is on August 24th because it commemorates the filing of the patent, the invention of the waffle iron on August 24th, 1869. That's how long waffle irons have been around. But waffles as a food have been around for several hundred years. And so there are a lot of restaurants. I think today, I didn't do a lot of research to find out. I'm not going out personally. I'm not going to be going out for a waffle breakfast. It's not that I discourage it. I don't have time to do that today. But if you would like to, you might check in your local area to see if there are any restaurants that are featuring maybe all you can eat waffles or just promoting their waffles. You can get waffles flavored in a lot of different ways. And this is National Waffle Day. I also want to mention one birthday that's coming up this week and just say happy birthday to Joshua Fort. Josh's birthday is on August 29th, coming up closer to the middle to the end of this, on the 29th, whatever day of the week that is. What is that, Thursday? Anyway, August 29th is Josh's birthday. So happy birthday to Josh. And maybe you have a special day this week that I did not have on my list or on my calendar that you'd like us to acknowledge and celebrate with you. You can put it in the chat right now. Thank you. That is Thursday. And if you have a special day coming up, perhaps as we're getting to the end of August now, maybe you have a special day coming up in September or October or November, by the end of the year, that you want to make sure we get on the calendar. It doesn't have to be a birthday. Maybe it's an anniversary. Maybe it's some other special commemoration that you want to make sure that we celebrate with you. You can send us an email at cbwsteve@comcast.net. It's showing here on the screen right now. Make sure that we get that information so that we can indeed celebrate with you. All right. Listen, once again, glad that you're here. If you are tuning in for the first time, we'd love to have you say hello in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. I know we have some people who tune in sometimes specifically because of the guest we're going to be chatting with on the show, and that's perfectly fine. We're glad that you are here and that you're going to join us for our conversation today. But let us know that you're here, and when we get to our chat in a few minutes here, when our guest is on, please participate in the conversation. I'll let you know, as so often the case, the conversation with our guest today was pre-recorded, but you can still engage in the chat, and he will have a chance to come in and see your comments either live now or when he has an opportunity later on, and can respond to those. So do participate in the chat. Let me tell you about our guest, and then I'm going to let you share in the conversation. Before being appointed as the executive director, Chris Carter served as the Director for Development and Communications for Livermore Valley Arts. In his role, Chris was responsible for all the fundraising and marketing efforts for the organization. Since joining Livermore Valley Arts, he has helped to raise more than $15 million for the arts in Livermore, California. He joined the Livermore Arts staff in 2014. He's been there for 10 years now, after working more than 11 years at St. Mary's College of California, where he spent the last 8 as a leader in the college's development department. His last position held there was as Director of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving. In 2023, Chris was a recipient of the Alameda County Arts Leadership Award. He is a member of the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance, Association of Performing Arts Professionals, the California Presenters Association, and Western Arts Alliance. Chris was also a founding board member of the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance. He currently serves as the chair of the St. Mary's College School of Science Advisory Board and also serves on the board of directors for Visit Tri-Valley and Livermore Jazz Society. He is an advisory board member for Three Valleys Community Foundation and the Las Positas College Commercial Music Advisory Board. An avid guitarist, Chris has performed steadily in the community for the last 25 years with his bandmate Mike Lickus as a member of the LK Project. Together, they have written and recorded 4 studio albums and continue to share their love of music with anyone who will listen. Chris lives with his wife and 3 children in Pleasanton, California, and has been a volunteer for the Boy Scouts in various capacities over the last 12 years. Please join me and take part in this conversation that I had with an amazing guy, Chris Carter. Chris Carter, thank you for taking the time to join us on Coffee Breaks with Steve. It's great to have you here.
Hey, good. How are you doing? You know what? I didn't bring any coffee. I apologize.
That's okay.
I should have thought of that.
That's okay. We'll make up for it later. You can go get your coffee after we get done, and that's fine too.
Okay, sounds good.
It's to me, it's always interesting when I talk to people who are involved in any capacity in the arts to talk about their own personal journey. Can you talk a little bit about your personal journey as a musician?
Yeah, I could tell you when I grew up in Austin, Texas. It in the late 70s and early 80s, and my parents, obviously, I think we all are influenced by what our parents' interests are. And so, in regards to arts, we listened to a lot of music in the house. We didn't go see live performances at all that I can recall. But what was popular back then at the time is I'd call it kind of like country yacht rock, country
Yeah.
politan music, Kenny Rogers and Julio Iglesias and, Willie Nelson when he went through his Stardust phase and things
Hmm.
like that. And so that's the music that really kind of makes me feel nostalgic when I listen to it. And then I do remember we weren't really exposed to the fine arts that much, but my dad also listened to a lot of jazz, and every Sunday morning he would put on an opera record. He had one opera record he'd listen to it Sunday mornings, and it was Enrico Caruso, and it was a
Oh.
recording that was like 100 years old, and
Hmm.
I could still hear it in my mind. There's a section where he laughs, and for some reason, my dad loved this album. So that was kind of my only connection to what I would call the fine arts. And then as I grew older, we moved to California. And when I was in high school, I was part of I went to church, and the youth program needed somebody to play guitar to lead songs, and I just volunteered to do it. I had no idea how to play the guitar at the time, but that was kind of my introduction to the guitar. And so I learned the guitar. I bought an electric, and then I got an acoustic, and I kept adding to my collection over the years. And when I was in college, I met a friend, and we started a band together. This was probably 1994, and 30 years ago, and we are still playing together today. And we still write and record our own music, and we perform live. His name's Mike, probably my closest friend and colleague and creative colleague, and it's been great for me to have a creative partner like that through my life. But it was always a part of me. And then when the opportunity came to work at a performing arts center, my kids were young, and that was the chance for me to really bring my love of art and the arts and transfer it down to them. So, I think I listen to what they listen to now, and I think a lot of it is influenced by what my wife and I, just like for me and my parents, what we listened to when they were young. And so it's nice to see that being instilled in them. None of them play an instrument, but I think they have a great appreciation for the arts. So it's always been part of my life. You can see behind me, I've got a couple of guitars hanging up. That's my favorite instrument. I just think it's so versatile, and it's portable, and you can. Thing with the guitar is like you can play a whole song by yourself. You don't need accompaniment. You could do it on your own, and it would sound fine. And so I love that aspect. So you can be by yourself and still do a whole complete piece just on your own, which I love too.
You mentioned in talking about your story, your journey before going to work for a performing arts center, but you are the executive director of Livermore Valley Arts, located in Livermore, California, operates the Bankhead Theater and works in a variety of other settings. Can you talk a little bit about Livermore Valley Arts, the organization itself, what the mission is, and just share with us a little bit about the organization?
Yeah. It's a relatively young organization. It was the Bankhead Theater opened in 2007. It's a 500-seat theater. We are a nonprofit cultural arts organization. We operate two spaces, the Bankhead Theater and the Bothwell Arts Center. the primary space for performance is the banquet theater, and the Bothwell is where we would do camps and classes and arts education. And there's a visual space. There's a whole artist community there. So it's a very vibrant space as well. And you talk about our mission. It's not a super long sentence, but we're trying to engage, enrich our community through the arts. I like to say we serve the community through the arts. We don't produce anything really. We present. We're a space for the arts. We're a vessel for the arts. And the banquet theater is in downtown Livermore. It's a beautiful space. Acoustically, it sounds incredible when you're in there. And it's just, I personally wish it was a little bit bigger, to be honest. But it's such a great fit for the Livermore community, Tri-Valley region.
Why do you feel that bringing the arts, whether it's performing arts, fine arts, visual arts, etc., why is bringing that to the public important?
It's funny. I do a curtain talk before most of the shows that we present, and I do a little pitch for what we do. And I started saying something last year that seemed to really resonate with people. And the first time I said it, there was a big round of applause. And I simply said that we believe the arts makes all of our lives better. And I honestly believe that in every sense of the word. But I like to say that the arts can heal the heart and feed the soul, right? So that's our healthcare. That's our nourishment that we give to people. And there's something about collectively experiencing the arts together in a community that is also good for you. There's actually some research, Steve, on people who attend live performances on average live about 8 years longer than people who do not, and they live healthier lives. And being a part of a community, I think, is a big part of that. Experiencing art with other people amplifies the effect that you get, because not only are you feeling something, you're feeling what they're feeling. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And the drive to be creative and to it's an important drive in people, but it's also important for us to support that because it's really good for us.
Do you have a response when people come directly to you when you're talking to people and they say, yeah, arts are great, but it really is not a necessity. It's a luxury. Do you have a response other than what you've already been sharing here?
Well, it's a part of making a person whole, right? Being a whole person and feeling like a whole person. One thing that this is it was interesting. I did this thing last year, and it was just for me, it almost felt like an afterthought, but I reached out to 3 organizations in the Tri-Valley. One was Open Heart Kitchen, and then Tri-Valley Haven and Goodness Village. And I'd been talking to a donor about, is there a way we can get the people that they serve to come to the theater? And would that be helpful in any way? And so I asked them, is there any interest in this? And they said, absolutely. And so we worked out a deal. Somebody, is underwriting the cost of tickets for these organizations to give to the people they serve. And so when there's a performance coming up that we know is not going to sell out, I reach out to them. They say, would you like some tickets? And they almost always say yes. And I went to Open Heart Kitchen and met a couple that said, we went to your theater, and it was such a great thing for us to do, and to be able to go out and enjoy that, have that experience. And John, the executive director of Open Heart Kitchen, has told me a couple of times how meaningful that has been for them to be able to do that. And so you kind of forget, yes, it's important all those things are very important, but you can't discount the human part of who we are. And, if you can provide those things, then you should be able to provide, you can't neglect the other things that make us, it's one thing to live, but it's another thing to understand what makes life beautiful and worthwhile, right? So I think that's something that we can help support.
I've encountered this. I know you've encountered it, where people will sometimes say about an organization like Livermore Valley Arts, they'll say, well, you're selling tickets. Why do you need donations? Why,
Because it's expensive to operate a space that size. If we sold out every single show that we did, we still wouldn't. It's a losing business model on a for-profit side. To be honest, it's a really hard business to be in. It's half of our revenue comes through contributions and membership and things like that, and sponsorships. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to exist.
You'd have to, it would be a catch-22, because you'd have to offset that by raising ticket prices to such a level that people in the community would not be able to. It
would be unaffordable.
Attend. Yeah,
absolutely. And just the day-to-day costs of a facility of that size, just to heat it or cool it down, or we have to have we have overhead. There's no way around it. It's still a business, and so there's all sorts of costs to that. You have to have insurance, and we get billed for so many things. I don't even know where it all comes from, but it's just the nature of running a business, right? And so there's a lot of costs, and we are trying to do work that benefits the public. And so, contributions are a part of the business model.
How did COVID impact organizations like Livermore Valley Arts, both during the pandemic and since? What have you seen? What did you see during, and what has been the aftermath?
First of all, that was professionally probably the most challenging part of my career was when COVID. I had been the executive director for about 6 weeks, and then we had to shut down, and we essentially let go of about 80% of our staff. And the rest took a really big pay cut because we really did not have the resources to survive very long and cover our day-to-day costs, like we just talked about, right? Without any kind of ticket revenue. Yeah. So what we found, first of all, we thought we were going to be closed maybe for 2 weeks, and then that turned into 14 months. I think we discovered that there was a real longing for us to be open, and I think people really missed the live performance. You try to do this stuff on Zoom and these video concerts, and they're okay. It gives you a little bit, but it doesn't really give you what you need, that community piece. And the funniest thing is, we live stream comedians, and for a comedian to do a full set without an audience is really weird and hard for them. So I think there was a real longing for what we do. We were actually able to raise. We did really well with the fundraising when we were closed, because I think people wanted to be able to make sure that we were open again when the things eased up. And our ticket sales were very good out of the gate. And then it kind of got up and down with all the different waves and things like that. But this last year, we had our best ticket sales ever by a lot. The arts are still struggling, specifically the fine arts. So if you think of like the opera or symphony, things like that, dance, those patrons that used to go to those things are not back, and they probably won't come back. And it took, some of these companies, 40, 50 years to build up a subscriber base that got wiped out in 1 year. Yeah. It's like starting from scratch again. And so I think that audience is still not back. There's going to be a real I think you're going to see a lot of these fine arts organizations and theater companies go out of business in the next year or two. A lot already have. So, and then there was this mad rush to these large arena shows and things like that, like Taylor Swift and some other artists in the last year. But all of a sudden that's taken a big hit. And I think a lot of that has to do with cost. And so, people are price sensitive, and those shows are very expensive to do. So we're kind of in a little bit of a sweet spot because we're not, we can bring really good performances without breaking the bank, and it's an intimate venue, and it's more personable. So I think if we approach it in a smart way, we'll be fine. But the rest of the sector is still kind of finding its way. So I think that's kind of where it is at right now.
Talk about the role of arts education in schools through organizations like Livermore Valley Arts, and how schools and arts organizations can partner and collaborate, and including in that some of the things that Livermore Valley Arts has done over the years and continues to do to try to find those connections and partnerships.
Yeah, it's really great that California passed Prop 28 last year, which is funding specifically for arts in schools. And, a large part of that is to go towards salaries for teachers, art teachers, which I think is great. But there's also a pretty good chunk, I think 20% is allocated for programs outside of the school. So those are opportunities for us to reach out to the district and give them programming that meets their needs, exposes these kids to the arts and different types of arts, and hopefully inspires them in new ways. And so, we have, we do our own camps and classes, but we're about to launch an after-school drop-in program for art class, and then we have arranged with several of our touring artists next year to do strictly school performances in addition to their public performance. And the cost of those shows are being covered in part by that Prop 28 funding.
One of your big events each year is an event, your gala event called Brilliance at the Bankhead, which is coming up again this fall. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that in case there are some people who maybe haven't heard about it and want to consider coming and being a part of that?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for bringing that up. And that's a fundraiser. It is, I just talked about how we're affordable. That's the one thing with a pretty high ticket price, but it's for a good cause, right? And but what you get for the ticket is actually quite a bit. So it's a big event. If you've been to the Bankhead Theater, there's a plaza out in front. So there will be dinner out on the plaza and dining and live music, and then auction items and all those kind of fun traditional things. And then you'll go into the theater for a performance. And it's we always try to pair a national touring artist with our local symphony, which is somewhat of a challenge because you have to find an artist that has orchestral charts. They have to be available on that date. We only do it this one date a year. We are not flexible on that. And obviously their fee and needs has to be within our own capabilities and resources, right? So it narrows down the list quite a bit, but we do our darndest to get the biggest star we can absolutely get for that show. Last year we had Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, and a lot of people don't know he's a Broadway performer.
Oh yeah.
But he did a great fun show. And this year we have Catherine McPhee, who she's also a Broadway star, but she was I think she was a runner-up on American Idol in the 5th season when it was really in its heyday. And she's been on multiple TV shows and movies, and she's married to David Foster, who's if you know him, he's an incredible composer and arranger, and known for a lot of his Disney work as well. She's very glamorous. I keep thinking this show is she's going to bring a lot of glamour to to the performance. So it's going
Now,
to
are
be
you
heard
saying
with.
Jason Alexander wasn't glamorous?
Yeah, I
Oh,
wouldn't. That's not the first word I would use. He was amazing, but
yeah.
not. I wouldn't use that word. Uh, Kind of. We had Vanessa Williams a few years ago, and so it kind of reminds me of what Vanessa Williams did. So I think it'll be up on that level, and she's going to be magnificent. And we're working right now with the orchestra and putting the charts together and
Nice.
figuring out
And
all
what
the
is
pieces.
the date? What is the date for Brilliance at the Bankhead this year?
Oh my gosh, it's Saturday. I want to say September 7th. You might look it up and correct me.
We'll make sure we post it and
Yeah.
make that information available.
Thank
to
you. It's the
everybody.
first Saturday after Labor Day.
Yeah.
And that's when we always do it. It's the opening of our season. Our season is really aligned with what we think of like as a school calendar. So, September through May, that's our primary season. We'll do about 50 Bankhead Presents performances in that time frame.
And people can go to the website, which again we will post and share, and they can see your season schedule. They can see what's coming up. They can get information about Brilliance at the Bankhead and other opportunities to participate and contribute to Livermore Valley Arts.
Yeah, livermorearts.org.
Livermorearts.org.
One thing, you always have to be careful when you're buying tickets for shows, just as an aside, because there are third-party ticket sellers, and it's completely legal and completely wrong, in my opinion, because you could look up Catherine McPhee and Bankhead, and you might find a ticket selling site that's not our site, and they will charge you 3 to 4 times the amount that we charge for a ticket, and it's very misleading. So do not. You should only purchase tickets from the website of the venue.
Yeah.
So that's my PSA for everybody out there. It's egregious and it's wrong and it's a bad practice. We contract with artists and we have to stick to a certain ticket price.
Right.
But these third-party sellers don't have to do that, and it's just not okay.
How do you hope to see Livermore Valley Arts as an organization grow in the future? Do you have kind of a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? Are there things that you are looking toward doing along with your staff and your board and others to advance the mission and advance the programs?
Oh, absolutely. We talk about growth all the time, and so the question is, how do you grow if you've kind of maximized your capacity in the facility that you have, right? So maybe you need to add another facility, right? So I don't know if that's in the future for us or not, but I think we'd be open to exploring those kind of ideas. We're looking at partnerships with other venues and co-presenting, and that's another way to grow and expand. We have a 5-year strategic plan. It's we used to talk about financial stability, but now we're in a great position where we can talk about growth, and that's really our goal. Is not just to stay the same every year, but to continue to grow. We want our revenue to grow 5% at least every year, but in order to do that, we need to offer more programming. We want to serve more people every year as well, and that's our ultimate goal.
People watching this right now, in fact, I know for a fact there are going to be people watching this who live outside of the Tri-Valley area, in fact, live in many cases outside of California. Can you talk a little bit about how they should go about finding arts organizations in their area that might be worthwhile, and why they should bother to even do that?
I would advise you to seek out organizations where they're mission-based. I personally prefer the nonprofits because they do things beyond just having performances, special events and programs and outreach and all sorts of things. And those are the ones you want to support the most. There's a lot of wonderful nonprofit performing arts centers. Some of them are tied to municipalities or schools or things like that, which they have different resources and are operated differently, but they're all trying to do the same thing. And you don't have to go to a performing arts center. You can go to a restaurant or a park or whatever. It's just I would tell people, make it a part, be intentional and make it a part of your routine, and expose yourself to these things. One thing about, I'll say this too, this is like kind of poignant too in this day and age. I could have a disagreement with you, and we could argue about it quite a bit, and I will not change your mind. However, if I go to an a performance, a live performance of theater or something like that addresses the same issue, I could be moved. The arts is one of the few platforms that can really change people's ways of thinking, and for the better. Open up your mind, open up your heart to a new idea or something you hadn't thought about, or a different perspective, because it approaches it from an emotional standpoint, right? There's a lot of countries around the world where speech is oppressed, and the only way for people to be exposed to new ideas is through the arts, right? And so it's so important in so many ways, and I think I mentioned earlier, it does help you live a longer and healthier life if you are sharing these experiences with other people. So there's so many great benefits to participating in the arts, and you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be creative, but it'll help you nonetheless, and help you have a better life. And that's what I said at the beginning. We believe the arts makes all of our lives better. So why not seek it out?
You talked at the beginning of our conversation about forming the band with your best friend. The band is LK Project, and do you just want to briefly share where people can find your music?
Yeah, you can find it everywhere. We live in this great day and age where music distribution is not solely in the hands of a few companies. So we're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora. If you look up the LK Project, we have a Facebook page, so you could see if we're performing. We don't perform a ton. We all have busy lives, but we do like to write, and we record a lot. And so the last couple of years, we've put out a little 5-song EP about every 8 months or so.
Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for a conversation on Coffee Breaks with Steve. And thank you for what you are doing, continue to do along with your staff at Livermore Valley Arts and through some of the other outreaches in which you're involved, to just continue to serve the community and bring this important message and this important aspect of life to so many people.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. I'm glad to see you. You're looking good.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, our conversation with Chris Carter, the Executive Director of Livermore Valley Arts. And as I mentioned before, I had the privilege and the opportunity to work with Chris for a period of time on staff at Livermore Valley Arts. And it was one of the highlights of my career. I've had a long exposure to and participation in the performing arts through music, through theater, and a variety of other things. And to be able to work in a performing arts center and to be there, to be able to see so many of the artists who came through there, to be able to participate with our constituents, was a tremendous honor. Really, it was. Had it not been for COVID, I would have probably remained there. I was one of those people Chris talked about when he talked about the impact of COVID, who we had to make arrangements and change things because the theater was not able to open during that time. But anyway, it was great hearing from Chris and hearing so many great perspectives. I hope that for you, this is something that you also grab onto. Not everybody has the same background or exposure to or participation in the arts that I've had. So I recognize that, a lot of our guests come from areas of the arts, fine arts, performing arts, and other areas because it's of tremendous interest to me. But I also think it's something that we as members of societies, members of community, can all find ways to support and all find ways to be involved. We shared Livermore Arts website. You can go there and see what they are doing. Even if you don't live in California, it's a great organization to support. I'm not going to soapbox about it. You can find great organizations in your own community and participate. Be a patron of the arts. Be a supporter and contributor to those organizations as well. That's my soapbox. All right, listen, I want to share just briefly before we finish up today what's coming up in the next few weeks on Coffee Breaks. We were originally going to have an episode next week with Shalane and I talking about bucket lists, and we're actually going to wait. There are a variety of reasons for that. Next weekend is Labor Day weekend. We've got a variety of things going on as family, actually going to be on the road a little bit. We're going to be I'm going to be in Shalane's neighborhood, and it might make it, some of you might say, well, it'd be easier to do a show. We're going to be busy doing some things. She's got some things going on next weekend that we're going to be going to participate in. And it just makes it easier not to worry about doing coffee breaks next week. So I appreciate your patience when we do that, when we take a brief break. But we are going to come back the following week on September 7th. The plan is Shalane's having a party. We're coming back the following week to do an episode called How to Fill Your Bucket. We're going to talk about bucket lists and what they are and different ways that people will participate in putting together a bucket list. Does it necessarily mean things I need to do before I die, or is it just those things that are on your to-do list of activities and experiences? And there are other sides to it. There's a whole psychology around it. So we're going to talk about those things. And then the week after that, on September 14th, I got a very special guest by the name of Joel Herman, who is a long distance ultra marathon type of runner and also a U.S. Army veteran who served overseas in a variety of locations, a variety of places that during his active duty. And we're going to have a great conversation about running, going the distance, the running that he does, the activities that he does, why he does that, how he uses that to make a difference and share his story. You'll want to be here for that as well. What are the topics you'd like to discuss? And by the way, we got other topics and guests in the works. They're not formally and finally scheduled yet, but we're going to have different guests and different topics coming up through the month of September into October. We're already planning even beyond that. In November, we got a couple of surprises coming up for you as we get toward the end of the year that I'm just going to put out there as a teaser. But we want to hear from you. What are the topics that you would like to see us talk about? And you be part of that conversation. Who are the guests you would like to see on the show? You might know people I don't know that you can make an introduction to. I cannot even begin to tell you how many times the guests on Coffee Breaks with Steve have come from someone that a member of our virtual coffee table knows and has introduced me to and has made available, and they've come to join the show. So if you've got ideas, would you send them to us? Would you let me know? Let's get a conversation started on email to talk about it. You can email at cbwsteve@comcast.net and let us know at least 5 times. That's probably true, Shalane, maybe more. But I also want to encourage you. I know some of you were on here for the first time, or you may not be joining regularly. If you would be so kind, when we finish up here today, to go to, if you're not already, you may be watching this on YouTube right now. Whether or not you are, would you please go to our YouTube channel, which you can find by going to YouTube and putting in Coffee Breaks with Steve, or you can go to at CBWS. And I think it will come up that way as well. But go to our YouTube channel and become a subscriber and click on the bell so that you get alerts when we have something new up there, when we have new updates. Why? Because there are so many people out there that need to hear from and be in a conversation with people like Chris Carter, who need to see the guests, see and hear the guests, and experience what you get to experience. And they're not all on Facebook. They're not all tuning in here. When we are on YouTube, our our programs are also recorded there. People can go back and see them, and that has happened. But as we get more subscribers to the page, as we get more people tuning in there, it raises the level of our visibility on YouTube. And that means even more people are going to be able to hear about the performing arts from people like Chris Carter. They're going to be able to hear about language and breaking down barriers from people like Estelle, who was on last week. They're going to be able to go back and see previous episodes with fantastic guests and be part of the upcoming episodes. So would you please do that? Be a subscriber. Be a person who helps us promote that and get it out to that many more people. I'd appreciate that. I think that's all that I wanted to say about that. So what I want to finish up with today is just to once again say thank you to Chris Carter for joining us on Coffee Breaks with Steve, sharing a fantastic perspective on the performing arts and the fine arts and the visual arts and why it's important to community, why it's important to us as individuals. Thank you to all of you for being here today. If you tuned in live, thank you. If you're tuning in later and you're watching this recorded, thank you. And I just want to remind you, we're in amazing and important times. We all have a way to reach out, to let our voices be heard, to be the hands and feet for people who may have a harder time getting out there and to get something done. We can touch lives. So please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.